Good morning, everyone. My name is Renee Reynolds, and I'm the Executive Director of Tri-State Transportation Campaign. For 30 years, our organization has been dedicated to fighting for transformative change in our transportation system in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So Transit Equity Week, which is a celebration by transit advocates, community organizations, and transit unions across the country, honors the life and legacy of civil rights activist Rosa Parks, who fought against systems of oppression and defended a fundamental belief that access to public transit is a civil right. So we honor her refusal to give up her seat and boycotting the Montgomery bus system in direct confrontation to a system that attempted to relegate people of color to a second-class status. We recognize this act of resistance to highlight the ongoing need to secure the right to affordable, accessible, safe, and reliable transportation. Right now, New Jersey is in dire need of operations funds. By fiscal year 2026, New Jersey Transit will need almost $1 billion to sustain operations. This past month, as many of you know, the agency just proposed a 15% fare increase. And we can't allow New Jersey Transit to balance the budget on the backs of its riders. Investing in public transit is a powerful step towards justice and equity, particularly for bus riders who are predominantly low income, people of color. So today we're here to celebrate 3 New Jersey Transit champions who are fighting in Washington, D.C. to secure federal funding for New Jersey Transit. They are the current co-sponsors of the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit bill. We will hear from them and other advocates momentarily, but first I'd like to pass it over to my colleague Kevin Shen, a policy analyst at Union of Concerned Scientists, to further explain the bill and what it could mean for New Jersey. Kevin.
Thank you, Renee. I'll give a second for slides. Thank you. All right, so good morning, everyone, and I'm glad to be able to speak with you all today during Transit Equity Week. My name is Kevin Shen. As Renee said, I'm a policy analyst over at the Union of Concerned Scientists, where we use science to advocate for a sustainable and just world. I'm here to speak on the importance of transit operations funding, which is the money for day-to-day expenses of things like paying bus and train operators or maintaining the system. In the end, this funding provides more and better transit service that gives more options to us all. Next slide, please. And so we need diverse, dedicated funding at the federal, state, and local levels. And on the federal level, I wanted to talk about a new opportunity. 3 weeks ago in Congress, Representative Hank Johnson introduced the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, which is a transformative opportunity for transit agencies across the nation. In short, this would bring $20 billion a year for a total of $80 billion for transit service across the country, and this would increase service to levels not seen for decades, frankly. We at UCS calculated that this would result in nearly 100 million additional hours of service nationally, which is around a 38% increase. Additional analysis by the Climate and Community Project has shown that this would result in around 230,000 jobs, and the American Public Transit Association estimates that each dollar spent on transit generates $5 in economic activity in return. So this would all go a long way, not only for transit riders, but for everyone by helping promote walkable, thriving neighborhoods across the country, whether you live in a rural community or a major city. Next slide, please. From this bill, New Jersey would receive over $2.3 billion for better transit across the state. And this would go to agencies ranging from the big ones like New Jersey Transit, PATH, and PATCO, but also including smaller ones like those in Cape May County, Atlantic City, or rural Sussex County. When counting the entirety of areas that cross state lines, this number is even greater as well. And next slide, please. This funding is not only important for more jobs and the economy, but also is crucial in the fight for climate and equity for everyday New Jerseyans. According to research by the National Academies, a typical trip on public transit emits 55% fewer global warming emissions rather than driving or ride-hailing alone. Transit both helps split the emissions and air pollutants among many riders, but also promotes cluster development that makes it easier for everyone to get around, including car drivers. In addition, funding transit operations is crucial for everyone, and especially for improving service and preventing cuts that disproportionately affect low-income communities and communities of color, who are 1.6 times more likely to not own a car in New Jersey. These communities are saddled with the cumulative impacts of many other environmental, social, and health vulnerabilities, as summarized on the right in USDOT's Transportation Disadvantage Index as well. Next slide, please. And so we are grateful to Representatives Menendez, Payne, and Watson-Coleman, who have already co-sponsored the bill. But in truth, every district in New Jersey, no matter the party, stands to benefit from transit operations. These representatives need to hear from you to co-sponsor the bill, and that transit is crucial for the economy, climate, and equity in your community. And so you can reach out easily via the action that Tri-State will share soon. And then last slide. In short, transportation should be a system that supports people, and to build that system, we must invest in it at the federal, state, and local levels. And so we hope that you can join us in making sure that that happens. Thanks so much, and back to you, Renee.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that breakdown and contextualizing the issues. We are joined by Congressman Rob Menendez, who will give us a few words, and then after that, we'll hear a video that was shared by Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman. So I'll pass the mic to Congressman Rob Menendez.
Well, thanks so much. It's great to be with you today as we celebrate Transit Equity Week. I appreciate the summary of the bill that I was able to co-sponsor. We have the honor of sitting on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee here in Washington. We're trying to take on these big challenges that public transit agencies are facing in a post-COVID environment where we have modified work weeks, and it's impacting operations for a lot of transit operators. And it's a dynamic situation that we hopefully are thinking about in a constructive way across all levels of government. And so we've had the opportunity to ask Secretary Buttigieg about this current dynamic, what we can do at the federal level to ensure that we're supporting our state and local transit agencies. We've brought these issues to the forefront, whether it's, immense funding for the Northeast Corridor Gateway program, over $11 billion that have come into the district since last year, January of last year. And also more local issues like in Jersey City when the ANC bus line was going to shut down its operations, making sure NJ Transit could fill that void. And we're in constant dialogue with NJ Transit. There's a lot of opportunities out there, especially with the light rail, which runs through the 8th Congressional District and is an incredible opportunity to expand it. And then, we want to talk about big ideas as well. With the whole congestion pricing conversation, we put out the idea of extending the 7 line into New Jersey, something that was discussed during the Bloomberg administration after the cancellation of ARC, which would promote an additional opportunity for people to use mass transit to travel between New Jersey and New York. And so the bottom line is we believe in mass transit. We believe in the infrastructure to sustain mass transit. We know that it requires significant investments, but doing so is for the betterment of our communities. And so we want to continue to be a leader on this issue, work with organizations like Tri-State. It's good to see a lot of friends on this call, including Doug, and to just be a partner as we work on these challenges. And while there's headwinds, not letting that stop us from making the significant investments in our mass public transit agencies and infrastructure, which are going to continue to ensure that we keep people moving throughout the district, throughout the region. So thank you for doing this incredibly important work. Transit equity is an extremely important thing as we look at all the different pieces that impact people's lives, from housing, affordability, access to mass transit, trying to create connectivity in transit deserts. There's a lot of work to do, but I do know that if we work together and we work through all levels of government, including with nonprofit actors, we can come to the solutions that we so desperately need, and that our residents are looking to us to deliver on. So it's great to join you. I'm sorry I'm a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to make sure we got on to just support the work that you're doing and to let you know that you have an ally here in Washington, and reach out anytime. Any ideas, any bills that we should be on that we're not already on, let us know. We really want to be a partner on this, and especially using our perch on transportation infrastructure to make sure that we're delivering significant changes for the district, for the state, and for the region. So thank you all so much. It's really a pleasure to be on with you, and I look forward to speaking with you all soon.
Thank you, Congressman. I think the video is going to start, but thank you so much for your words. The video is muted.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman, and I represent New Jersey's 12th District. We observed Transit Equity Week on the week of February 5th, Rosa Parks' birthday. This timing reflects the historical connection between our public transit systems and social equity. Transit systems have the power to bring our communities together, but history has shown that they can also be used as instruments of division. As we work towards a more just society, it is more important than ever that we fully fund public transit systems and ensure that they are affordable and reliable for people who depend on them to provide for their families, receive an education, or expand their horizons of opportunity. That is why I am a proud co-sponsor of the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, which was just reintroduced earlier this year by my colleague from Georgia, Rep. Hank Johnson. This bill would increase federal funding for public transportation in both rural and urban communities. It would help keep fares low for riders, reduce delays along transit routes, and improve the overall quality and efficiency of transportation systems across the country. Securing dedicated operations funding is crucial to the future of New Jersey transit. New Jersey has long been a commuter and a transportation hub, and everyone who lives and works here deserves reliable and accessible transportation that meets their needs. So I'm grateful to the Tri-State Transportation Campaign for their work in promoting transit equity, quality, and sustainability, and I will continue to be an advocate for equitable public transportation systems here in Congress on behalf of our country and our state.
Amazing. I mean, we're very lucky to have some really strong champions at the federal level. We'll continue to work in partnership with them on this issue and keep on pushing. So thank you so much, Congressman Menendez and Congresswoman Watson-Coleman, for your leadership, for your commitment to transit equity, and for securing, working to secure more federal dollars for the New Jersey transit system. Unfortunately, Congressman Doug Payne Jr. was not able to join us today, but if you take a look at the press release that we shared, you'll have an opportunity to read a little bit on his perspective. So now I'd like to give the mic over to one of our New Jersey senators, Senator John McKeon, to share some words with us.
Well, thank you so very much. And let me start by indicating I'm very familiar with the work of Tri-State Transit and how important it is. But I didn't know its history as it related to celebrating the courageous actions of Rosa Parks. And so with that, it makes today even that much more meaningful. And congratulations again by advancing what is Transit Equity Week. And of course, to the federal representatives, I say to this, that, the pressure is on them. And as well as us in New Jersey. Look, it's no secret that I'm critical of the administration in New Jersey Transit for looking to get our deficit, so to speak, off of the backs of the riders. Now, $6 a day is a significant amount of money, particularly for the riders in not an economic circumstance to absorb that. $6 a day, and even worse, they're taking away the flex pass. Now, how tone deaf is that, in my view, in 2024, when people are on different kinds of work schedules? And that gets to a little bit of why the ridership is just down. But to take away that option again is taking money out of people's pockets, and it's just wrong. And what's really wrong is that we're faced with a $100 million deficit this year, and we have no good solution as to what we're going to do about that. Truthfully, and $800 million the next year, notwithstanding our proposal to dial back the corporate business tax component that was allowed to lapse, and then take that money and dedicate it specifically to New Jersey Transit as a dedicated source of revenue. That's still not enough, and that brings in the federal government. Look, New Jersey's long been a donor state. Places like Kentucky get back, $5 for every dollar they send down, whereas we get a lot less than we send. And I really appreciate Congressman Menendez, my former colleague Bonnie Watson Coleman, and our entire delegation for their efforts to bring some money back to New Jersey. We need it. It's the only way that this is going to be long-term, sustainable, and affordable. And so with that, all of you on this call are my heroes for the advocacy work that you do. And I'll be there for you in any way I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. We hope that you will continue to be a voice for public transit, and that your colleagues will be influenced by your informed and perspective on the issue. We want them to get it right. We know that transit is really important for the economic growth of New Jersey, and we hope that they hear us and take action.
Well, I'm only going to say to that, and thank you. I was there and led the hearings that were bicameral and bipartisan with Loretta Weinberg. And the Christie administration, we see what happens to NJ Transit when you just ignore it. My God, anything from bastardizing the different parts and having engines not working to not even hiring and recruiting engineers. It was a disaster. The administration's done a good job in coming back from that, but we can't go back to the old ways because we know what the consequences would be.
Absolutely. The status quo is unacceptable. Okay, so we also have another amazing senator from New Jersey, Senator Raj Mukherjee. I'll pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you for your advocacy. It's alarming that, not just the deficit that Senator McKeon, my esteemed friend and colleague, mentioned, but the looming billion-dollar, fiscal cliff that we've known was coming, that we ought to have been planning for. Pennsylvania just increased, Governor Shapiro announced, just increased its funding for SEPTA, its subsidies, state subsidies for SEPTA, by more than the entire amount that our general treasury subsidized New Jersey Transit with in the prior fiscal year, taking Pennsylvania state government funding for SEPTA to $1 billion. New York sees nearly the MTA gets nearly 40% of its budget from dedicated taxes and subsidies from the state and from local communities that the MTA serves. So the fact that we are even having this discussion in 2024 about New Jersey Transit suggests that we are not prioritizing mass transit in our state, which is untenable for the third largest transit agency of its kind in the country, which provides 270 million passenger trips a year. And at the end of the day, we cannot afford to kick the can down the road anymore. It is time that we allocate dedicated funding sources, codify those allocations, those dedications into statute, and ensure that there's certainty that we can forecast for bonding purposes and to ensure reliability and service and cleanliness and all of the things that our commuters deserve, that we need them to be able to get to work for our regional economy. We need our citizens to be able to get to school. We need our citizens to be able to make medical appointments. And those who rely on mass transit usually don't have other options. It's good for the environment. It's necessary for public health. And it is vital to driving a regional economy in which our transit infrastructure is equivalent to the GDP of Switzerland. It's long overdue. I hope that the announcement about the World Cup and this crisis that New Jersey Transit is facing can bring us all together so that we can make this a priority, so that we ensure that there are dedicated funding sources, and that we can finally enact the legislation creating a rider advocate who's accountable to the legislature, the governor, not to New Jersey Transit. How do you hold your boss accountable? That doesn't make sense. And as it is, they've not even filled that vacancy the way the role is currently constituted in a couple of years. So thank you for your advocacy. It's critical. It's unfortunately, we're at like a crisis point, but we've been at that point. But sometimes that's what it takes, right? Don't let a good crisis go to waste. And I'm cautiously optimistic that this budget this year, we will get done what is decades overdue in terms of prioritizing mass transit infrastructure in New Jersey.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you so much for amplifying the importance of the experience that riders have when they take public transit. This is who the system was built for, the folks that need it to get to work, to get to school, to visit their family members, to visit all the amazing jewels that we have in New Jersey. So to talk a little bit about the rider perspective, I want to pass the mic to one of our amazing members of the TSTC Bus Riders Council, Tanisha Gardner. Tanisha.
Thank you, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thank you, senators, and thank you, congressmen. Thank you, everyone that's here from all the organizations. It's taken all of us to do this work. So New Jersey Transit, it is time for you to get your act together. There's no reason why, like you just said, we are the third largest transportation within the country. It's time for us to be able to set the precedents so that all riders, it's so funny because I remember one time I got to see one of the the congressmen riding the trains just to go to Washington. So it's not just, as you say, just the residents or just the community members. It's everyone that takes mass transit, and it needs to be fully funded. It's like having your own home when your budget is not correct, when you know you have to pay your light bill, you have to pay your mortgage, and you have to pay your car note. All that is important. So it's the same way that we have to do within our own personal lives. It's the same way that New Jersey Transit has to make it accountability and understand the importance of it. Especially with the fare hike raising up to 15%. What about the parents that have more than one child, and a child might be out of the zoning where you cannot receive a free bus card, and you have to purchase the bus tickets, or a resident or an employee that has to make it on time, and the buses are late and they're not clean. So when we look at this proposal in this bill, it's very important that this sets the precedents that needs to be able to happen within the future to move on, especially in collaboration with the Bus Rider Bill of Rights, because they two together would make it extraordinary change within our communities And especially with New Jersey Transit being a connected hub that helps us to travel national and internationally to be able to connect with the airport. So this is vital. And especially if residents cannot get to work, how would they be able to pay their rent? And that's going to be able to cause mass evictions. Or when the economy is changing, how are we be able to implement the programs or structures or policies that's going to be able to keep us sustainable for years to come? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. Really highlighting the intersectionality of transportation, the importance of being able to rely on the system for work. And also, thank you so much for, giving really key examples of how a system that's not working can create ripple effects throughout everyday lives. It's important for our elected officials to know the stories of folks who are taking mass transit every day as a necessity. I am going to pass the mic to our colleague Doug O'Malley from Environment, New Jersey. Sorry, Doug, I know exactly where you work.
All good, all good. Thank you so much, Renee, and thank you to all of the advocates, and thank you to Tanisha who just spoke. And then a big thank you to all of the congressional representatives, Representative Menendez, Bonnie Watson Coleman, and Representative Payne for being transit advocates. And a huge shout out to our two environmental and transit champions on the line, Senators McKeon and McCurgy. We're thrilled to have all of you stand with us and with strap hangers. We also, I just want to say, and Senator McCurgy mentioned this, we are thrilled with the announcement for the World Cup and the World Cup finals coming to the Meadowlands and New Jersey in summer 26, close to 2 years, more than 2 years away. But we need a world-class transit system now, not 2 years from now. And we need to fund a world-class transit system every year. And as Renee mentioned, really the best way to commemorate Rosa Parks' birthday is to fund transit. And Transit Equity Day is clearly hitting home closer this year because it's not equitable not to fund transit. And we need to pull out all the stops from for New Jersey Transit to prevent transit funding death spiral. And this is where having leaders in Congress like Representatives Watson Coleman, like Representative Menendez, like Representative Payne, they are stepping up to the plate to fund transit. We could fund so many projects with an additional $2 billion here in the state. But this is, the irony is this is the wrong time for New Jersey Transit and Governor Murphy and the legislature to be asking strap hangers to pay more for current inadequate service. We really heard from riders over the course of the last several weeks that the fare hike is not equitable because riders have had it up to here with the current inadequate service. And New Jersey Transit riders deserve service and funding that's affordable, that's consistent, and reliable. To make that happen, we need increased federal funding to prevent the fiscal cliff. We need to do everything we can in New Jersey and the New Jersey state budget to fund transit, not sock it to riders. And when we talk about transportation equity, to be clear here, we have more equity, more dollars are going to roads and to drivers. We are asking for this, not even the same amount of funding, but the same consideration for the close to nearly 1 million New Jersey residents that historically have relied on transit. And I think it's important to note here too, that transit is most crucial in the most densest urban communities, but our most rural residents also depend on transit and go to great lengths to ride it. So whether you're in Jersey City or Jefferson, you need transit. Also, as a reminder, when we talk about standing up for the environment, best way to do that is to get more people to ride transit. It fights air pollution, it fights climate pollutants. That's how we need to be reducing part of our overall strategy of reducing climate pollutants. And this is not a luxury. So I want to kind of this is why the congressional leadership is so important. But it's more than saying we believe in transit. It's actually funding it. And we are seeing, and Senator McCurgy mentions, we are seeing leadership from other states. So there's obviously the contested congestion pricing plan. That is New York stepping up to fund MTA. And 80% of New Jersey Transit riders depend upon MTA once they get into New York. We also have a moment right now in New Jersey where the Turnpike Authority is moving ahead, and Amy Goldsmith from Clean Water Action will talk about this, is moving ahead with a $6.3 billion Newark Bay Bridge project with planning expenses are more than $150 million. That's more than the fare hike right now. And as Senator Mukherjee mentioned, SEPTA has a transit funding crisis in Pennsylvania. Governor Shapiro is committing an additional $160 million. That is more than the state subsidy that was in the FY24 budget last year for New Jersey Transit. New York has stepped up to fund NPA. California has stepped up to fund BART. It's time for our New Jersey state leaders and Governor Murphy and the legislature to step up to fund transit and not balance the deficit for transit on the backs of transit riders.
Thank you, Doug. Next up is the Executive Director of New Jersey Work Environment Council, Deb Coyle.
Hi, thank you. So, you know, I'm glad to be standing here with my colleagues and advocates, and, you know, really happy to hear about some of the leadership on the line today as well, because this is, you know, this isn't going to be fixed, and it shouldn't be fixed on the back of riders. We can't have fare increases. This really, we need the state, we need some dedicated funding for New Jersey Transit. This is not a new issue. And certainly glad to hear more about the federal bill from Washington, from our congressional leadership that's on the line today. I just wanted to really talk about two pieces, because as you know, we're talking today about, you know, the fiscal cliff, right, that New Jersey Transit is looking at. And we go back a few years, and it was mentioned earlier on the call about COVID, right? Ridership declined during COVID because so many of us, you know, have an office but work from home, and that trend has continued. But there was workers that didn't have that luxury to be able to work from home. And that during COVID, they were called essential workers, right? Like we really relied on them. If you're a warehouse worker, you weren't able to work from home. If you worked in services, if you worked in healthcare, you weren't able to work from home. You really did rely on transportation, in a lot of cases, public transportation. And now to come up with a plan to say we're going to increase rider fares for workers, and some of these are low-income workers, it's unjust, and it's also not going to solve the problem. We really need to look at funding from federal and state sources. And the other thing I would say, you know, as we're looking potentially what would happen, what this cliff would be, potentially shrinking New Jersey Transit and some of the routes that we have, that's going to harm workers and community members, right? And right now we should be looking at expanding it, you know, as we're looking at, you know, putting money into the economy, as we're looking at offshore wind, certainly the wind port down in Salem County. I live in South Jersey. We should be looking at building up public transit, because as we, you know, trying to build an equitable, green, clean energy economy workforce, one of the biggest barriers is transportation. Public transportation needs more of it here in South Jersey, not less of it. So that's the conversation we should be having. But year after year, we have this conversation around New Jersey Transit and funding for New Jersey Transit. We need to find a way to do better, and it can't be balanced on the back of riders and workers. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, Deb, and thank you for amplifying the need for expanding the system. So many parts in New Jersey, and particularly in South Jersey, where access is few and far between. So at a time where we need more access, we see, you know, we're not seeing enough in our elected officials to expand the service that we need and to get people connected and get people moving in New Jersey. We'll keep pushing. Next up is Amy Goldsmith from Clean Water Action.
Thank you. So pleasure to be here with all of you and with all of our champions, both in Congress and in the legislature. And I know that together we have been fighting for funding for New Jersey Transit. It's like going on decades now. So let's get this together and let's get the funding that we need. You know, as somebody who rides the train whenever I can, I often wonder if the train's actually going to enter the station on time and bring me to my destination without delay. I often have to give myself an extra train ride just in case the train doesn't come on time or a cancellation happens. And I'm not the only one. And I have the option of getting in a car if the train doesn't show up, but not everyone does. In fact, most of the millions of riders or the trips that happen every year are done by people who have no other way to get to work or school or recreation or things that they want to do. So the only solution we have is, and we've been crying this cry for years, is we need dedicated funding at the state level and a commitment at the state level, but we also need the money from the federal government, given the size and importance of this transit system. And as mentioned, public transit is not a luxury item. It's not a yacht, it's a bus, it's a train, and my husband was riding on the train not too long ago, and he says, I can't even see out the window, because they don't clean the windows. They don't clean the trash out of the trash can. They just don't have the resources to even do some really basic functions, no less actually have enough engineers to run the trains, which is why many of the trains get canceled or the equipment is failing, and they're keeping it together with bubble gum and shoestrings. So public transit is an essential, just as essential as the workers that ride them, for climate, for health, for social justice. We need to prioritize it in the future. And the only other thing I'd like to say, in addition to what Doug mentioned, is that, the state and the governor needs to get its priorities together. We shouldn't be spending, $10 billion on a highway expansion at the Turnpike, trying to put more toothpaste into the same tube at the Holland Tunnel. It just doesn't work. We should be using that money for operation and maintenance of New Jersey Transit, not doing things to put more people on the road driving. We should be putting more people on the bus and on the train. And as we electrify the buses of New Jersey Transit, we need to have the operating and the capital dollars to get those buses running. There's only 8, and they have over 2,500 buses that they're going to need to electrify over the next 10 years. And we need to have people behind the wheel, steering the bus, but we need the maintenance workers, and we need the actual buses and the chargers and the upgrades, and all of that takes dollars. It can't be on the backs of the the riders. As we've said many times, this requires a big investment, and this is an investment that has true value for many, many years to come. It's a worthwhile investment, and we should put all of our dollars to New Jersey Transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And boy, do I wish public transit was like being on a yacht. I'm sure that a lot of people would be, clamoring to get on the next, fancy bus or train if the aesthetic were such. So Amy rounds up our speakers for today. We're going to open it up for questions in just a moment, but I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our New Jersey representatives in Congress, Congressman Rob Menendez, Congressman Watson Coleman, Congressman Payne, even though he wasn't able to join us today, for contributing to our press release, Senator McKeon, Senator McCurgy, and all our advocates and allies in this fight. As federal leadership pushes to safeguard New Jersey Transit's funding through the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, and I hope everybody memorizes that bill name, it's an imperative that our state counterparts mirror this commitment. We need a sustainable funding source for New Jersey Transit. We want more transit champions to join the fight, which is why we are asking folks who are on the webinar now and who watch this video later to take action. We want you to reach out to your New Jersey representatives and ask them to co-sponsor the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit bill. And you can do that by visiting our website, tstc.org, www.tstc.org. And we've also dropped a link, hopefully in the chat, and I'm not looking at the chat, but we've dropped a link in the chat, so you can click through and you can get to a pre-written letter that you can easily click and send off to your congressional representatives. So thank you again for joining us. And now I'll pass the mic to my colleague Jackie Cohen to lead us through the Q&A portion. And media, folks from the media, if you would just use the raise hand function, then we can spotlight you and give you an opportunity to ask a question.
Wonderful. And I see our friend reporter Larry Higgs has his hand raised. So Larry, we will bring you up. And you should be unmuted so you can ask your question.
Great. Well, thanks for holding this, since obviously the whole NJ Transit funding thing is pretty much front and center this year. My question is about the federal bill. Will the federal bill take care of or eliminate the fiscal cliff, or is there a need for tandem legislation, federal and state? And the other question would be, what are the chances of this bill, given some of the problems with bipartisan cooperation in Congress?
Sure. So I'll start and then other folks can join in. And I think, Kevin, I'll pass it to you to talk about the distribution of the funds from the bill. The bill is expected to raise over $2.3 billion for New Jersey, but that's not for New Jersey transit exclusively. It's for transit systems within New Jersey, state and local systems. It also includes Port Authority, right? So there's a distribution of the funds. So what we're saying is that this is a huge step towards closing that gap, but it is ultimately not enough. We need sustainable funding at the state level to ensure that we don't reach another deficit in the short years to come. And I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I will just add that there's a new report out, or a relatively new report out by the Urban Institute that shows how you can't just rely on one source of funding to solve all your problems. You need a diversity of sources. And so this federal bill is just one of many different options that New Jersey needs to be able to have more stable transit funding. On your second question, Larry, on support of the bill and things like that. I think we were very encouraged by there's over 70 co-sponsors across the country so far for this bill, and we want to build momentum. But as well, it's important to make sure that these ideas for more transit operations funding and things like that, it's important to make sure that those ideas are incorporated in the next federal surface transportation reauthorization, which is a big opportunity in 2026.
And
Great.
Larry, I'll make sure that we send you a copy of the Urban Institute report.
Great. Just a follow-up question, if anybody can speak to, since it's Transit Equity Day, the specific impact on disadvantaged communities, the working poor, seniors, and the disabled when fare increases come in. In other words, in real world terms, how does this impact them? What are they going to have to do without if this fare increase happens?
Yeah, people are already stretched thin. Their pocketbooks are hurting. People are already being faced with the choice of, do I pay for my fare or do I pay for groceries for the week? And so any increase, especially a 15% fare increase, is really going to hurt New Jerseyans, especially low-income people of color, especially those who are living on a fixed income. We've seen folks talk about this as if it's a tax on the working poor. And we really feel that everything is being done to put the burden onto riders who are already overburdened, not to come up with fiscal solutions at the state level that will fill that gap and make it easier to survive and thrive in New Jersey. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in. I saw Tanisha, you came off camera.
Yeah, definitely. Right now we're in a housing crisis, especially when you're looking across the country. So yes, they did raise minimum wage, but once you raise minimum wage, now you're looking at the economy where we used to be a AAA and now we are a AA, and now we're trying to figure out we're funding all these wars, people losing jobs, and it's affecting everything. So I think once you look at it as a holistically, how do we get it together countrywide and worldwide? Because everything that happens internationally affects us nationally. So how do we protect, everyone at the end of the day?
Thank you so much, Larry. I see we have John Reitmeyer just unmuted you. You can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone for doing this today. Kind of on the heels of one of Larry's questions, there's been some mention today about climate and the tie-in between mass transit operations and some of our climate challenges, which have also been in the news lately. New Jersey has an environmental justice law. Can one of the speakers talk to how building out mass transit plays a role in achieving climate goals and also the environmental justice goals? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. I'm happy to take that. I don't know if Doug, you want to take that, or
Or I can.
Amy.
Yeah, Amy, why don't you start? I think we certainly have thoughts on that. So, Amy.
So the environmental justice law has nothing to do with transit. It's all focused on Title V air permits and scrap yards and sewage treatment plants. So the law itself does nothing for the issue of transit, nor does it have anything to do with the port or warehouses where a lot of goods are moved. But from an environmental justice standpoint, people who live in communities, Black and brown, low-income communities, language isolated communities, actually, personally, they use less, they have less impact on climate than I would, being in a community where I drive a lot, right? I mean, I do have an electric car and I have what we call the incinerator car. We have one of each. But, people who live in Newark, they get most of the impact, right? But they're actually not the biggest contributors. It's the industry around them, it's the drivers around them, it's the ports around them that are making them sick. And so when you're riding a bus, you're getting asthma, you're getting all kinds of other respiratory problems from the air pollution and the co-pollutants and the diesel emissions. The greenhouse gases, on a bus, or actually cars are the bigger contributor of greenhouse gases than a bus is. But the sickness that it causes people in, BIPOC and low-income EJ communities or environmental injustice communities is really what we should be saying. They get the brunt of it because they have the dirtiest buses, they have the rail yards, they have the concentration of dirty diesel that they have no control over.
I'll add to that we know that public transit and investment in public transit is a great offset to the pollution caused by cars and the transportation sector. And New Jersey Transit has its own goals of electrifying its bus fleet to make, what is public transit is inherently a benefit to our environment, and then electrifying the fleet only furthers that commitment by New Jersey. But New Jersey Transit will not be able to electrify its fleet without sustained funding, right? This is a costly transition to a zero emission bus fleet. And we know for a fact that New Jersey Transit will not be able to meet its own goals and its own deadline without sustained increased investment in its zero emission bus pilot.
And just to kind of add to that and to answer your question more directly too, John. So what Jackie's talking about, obviously to electrify our bus fleet, we need dollars. And for the last 2 years, there has been transfer from the Clean Energy Fund to New Jersey Transit that's supposedly dedicated to electric buses, but it's not a capital transfer, it's an operating transfer. So, capital is needed, $200 million of capital funding is needed to make the electric bus goals and mandate in the electric vehicle bill passed in January 2020 real. In terms of action on climate, I think the best way to think of this is, we know that the most sustainable vehicle is a bus or a train car. And, we advocate fully for electrification of all our vehicles, but the most sustainable thing is to get more people to take mass transit for our climate and air pollution goals. The governor signed Executive Order 247 more than 2 years ago. Which has a goal of reducing climate pollutants by 50% by 2030. If we're going to do that, we need to get more people taking transit, not less. And every time you raise fares, you get ridership reductions. So, really, Transit Equity Day is about equity for riders, but also Transit Equity Day should be about equity for the environment, because riding NJT is good for the environment and it's also good for drivers. And in kind of in a deeply ironic moment during the wildcat strike during 2022 on Juneteenth, we saw what happens when you don't have public transit. People can't get to where they are, and people that are fortunate enough to be able to drive cars flooded the roads and created massive traffic jams. So transit equity is for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a senior. I could go on New Jersey Transit for half price. And for me to go to Newark, you know, for where I am, it's $10. But I can't even imagine having to pay $20 or more every single day. It's unfathomable to do that. And I'm really looking forward to it. We're moving our office to Elizabeth, and I'll be able to just take one train ride to North Elizabeth and get off. And I'm really looking forward to that. But I can't imagine having to pay full fare, you know, and I appreciate being a senior and having a senior rate. Who knows? That might be the next thing going, you know, got to watch out.
I guess the biggest thing right now with the New Jersey Transit, when they scrapped the gas fire backup power plant. So that was a good thing. So that shows that they're taking accountability and how advocates and everyone came together to fight against it. So that was one way they saved money, and they could reuse that money like they say they want to do.
Right. Thank you all. Any other questions? Folks from the press can raise hands. And if not, we will make a recording. We've recorded this event. We will make the recording available to all participants and to members of the press. We want to follow up with our call to action, which we've linked in the chat, and we will share on our social media platforms to write to your members of Congress and request that they sponsor the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act. And we thank the three fantastic sponsors from New Jersey, Congress members Watson Coleman, Payne Jr., and Menendez, who have already co-sponsored the bill. So if you go to our website, you can fill in your address. You'll be linked to either a thank you letter if you live in one of these three districts, or a letter requesting that your member of Congress sign on and support and sponsor the bill. And with that, I think we can wrap up. So thank you all so much for joining us. Happy Transit Equity Week to all. And really, it's Transit Equity Day every day in our world. We are constantly fighting for improved, better funded, better running public transit, and better mobility for all. And so we're really grateful for all of our participants today for joining us and being here to celebrate this cause. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.